Welcome, motherfuckers, to the Matt Signal Podcast.
And welcome once again to a podcast that you should take with a grain of salt and a shot of penicillin. I am your host, Matt Jablonski. This is the Matt Signal, and I got some fancy dancy music coming up here. I was trying to think of some sponsors, some clever sponsors for today's show, and I'm going to continue thinking about that because I didn't come up with anything really worth note, but I just thought this would class it up a little bit, even though that's really loud in my headphones. I think I'll have to wait till after I'm done recording to turn it down so it doesn't affect the recording because technology. Yeah. Love that jazzy shit. I've been spending my day thinking about important things. Things that matter really to all of humanity, I think. I was considering whether or not. Well, alright. I think that most guys will agree that masturbation is a thing we all do, but it's a little bit overrated. It's the same thing pretty much every time. We all have our routines. Yeah. A little bit of, we're starting it off classy. But I was wondering about, would it be a more effective solution if you were able to have an out-of-body experience while you masturbated? I feel like that that might be a cool, thing to do, but then I had to wonder about the obvious question that comes with that. It's an out-of-body experience, right? So does that mean you're gay if you're giving yourself a hand job while you're having an out-of-body experience? Because you're not attached to your body, therefore it's kind of like a separate guy is giving you a hand job. These are important things we got to think about. So if in that scenario it does in fact make you gay, then at best I am bisexual. So I guess this is my coming out party. What the fuck is wrong with me? I was supposed to go to a concert today. It was going to be cool. I was looking forward to it. Ritz, the rapper, currently signed with Strange Music. Probably soon to be doing his own thing. I guess there's an argument to be made that there are an awful lot of white rappers making it to the top of the industry right now, and I'll never be one of them, but I will be a person who occasionally makes rap songs because, I don't know, should I call it hip-hop? I don't really understand the difference between the terms. Like, I need to get someone that is really credible to explain it to me, because I've tried looking it up. And when you go online to look up things about hip hop and rap, I hate to say it, but a lot of the community is pretty fucking stupid. I mean, I'm sure if you sat and talked to them, they're probably very insightful, but man, they don't want to type out any full words at all, and it makes it maybe I'm just getting too old. I don't know, but at this point, when I type out a text message, usually the words are full. Now, that's not 100% of the time. Occasionally, I have been known to use the letter U when I meant, in fact, the word you. And I'll take my lashings for that. I own up to my flaws as a human being. I think we all got to do that. I occasionally type you when I could type you. I sometimes, honestly, I don't know where I was going with that, which is super shocking. I was thinking about some of the things that begin to happen as we grow older, and sort of the distance between us and our past lives is, I don't know, innocent and young, that time. You just get further and further away from it, obviously. But how certain things will change over time, and situations will suddenly freak you out that you didn't anticipate the day that you were first going to be in this situation. So, obviously more and more people around me have kids, and so I'm an uncle to a million kids. And they're all awesome. There's like whatever. Anyway, I have one niece and nephew by blood, and I have thousands of nieces and nephews by friends. But it was the first time that we were sitting around after the tornado siren went off. We're all hanging out in my basement area. And I showed the kids that I had all this recording equipment, and I was like, if you wanted to, we could do like a karaoke song or something, because the girls could sing. I'm away from my microphone. The world is ending. I'm sorry. I don't know if you can hear me or not. I'm not far away. I was longer than my headphone cord would go. Sorry. I'll have to listen to this one back. This one may not go out. Anyway, I was showing them the recording equipment I have, and I told them it was possible that we could, do like a karaoke song if they wanted to. I could record them and, dress up their voices a little bit, and it'd be neat, whatever. So they tell me this song, and I've never heard of it. I've never heard of the artist. I've never heard of the song. I have no idea what's coming up. I wish I would have written down the name of the song, but about halfway through the song, it dawns on me that like 2 11-year-old girls are sitting in the living room just singing a song that's about fucking. And now I become intensely uncomfortable at the situation because what am I supposed to do? This thing is played on open broadcast radio. This thing is just sent out to who the fuck ever tunes into it. This whole song is about fucking. Like, they're talking about like getting over a man by getting under a man and shit. And I'm just like, is this really happening right now? Like, what am I supposed to allow this? Am I supposed to step in? I don't think I should engage these kids in conversation about it whatsoever because they're not my kids. I don't know what their parents have told them. And honestly, it's just fucking weird if a 30-year-old dude's talking to an 11-year-old girl about sex when it's not my fucking kid. So I'm freaking out. I'm like, I don't want to be in this position. This is weird. But then the weirder part is when they bring up the fact that what they're singing about is a fuck song. So now they've brought it up, and I don't know what the fuck to do. Oh, no, it looks like I spiked the audio on that. I thought I was far enough away. So it was a really confusing situation. And I just had to tell him, I was like, I really don't want to have this conversation with you. And I mean, I'm not going to referee what you listen to because you're not my kids, but I don't think maybe we should do this. So, maybe we could find a more user-friendly song. I just had to get out of the situation as best I could because it's just, you got to be careful when you're talking to other people's kids, man. I don't want to be a source of damage for anybody. Like, I'm a unique individual, but I promise you, I don't ever have intentions of hurting anybody. So when weird situations with kids and stuff come up, I'm like, oh no, how can I get out of this with the least psychological damage possible? That's always like what I'm thinking. Like, how can I make sure that I'm not a traumatic experience right now but I also can help them learn from this thing that's happening. And then I realized that I'm not even a parent yet. And I may never be, but I'm not a parent yet. And so then I start thinking about like what it must actually be like for the people who have kids and they're trying not to scar them, but they're like dealing with their own bullshit because, you know, maybe some people were too young. They weren't in stable relationships, or they were with somebody they thought was cool, but then it turns out years later they're a piece of shit, or whatever the case is. So, like, these people are trying to figure their lives out and probably wrestling with those same feelings of, like, how do I get this point across with the least trauma possible? And, like, man, you know, when you think about it, it does sound like a really daunting task. And so, like, props to all you parents out there who are trying your best not to fuck your kids up. I give you credit for that. So I noticed the last episode that I put up didn't do as well, and it was pretty, net neutrality is kind of a. I had a friend bring up to me, he's like, it's just really kind of an irritant, isn't it? And I was like, honestly, yeah, it is. It is. And I want to try to stay away from getting too directly involved in political issues like that. I think I was just like scratching the bottom of the barrel for something to talk about, and I didn't have any, that was something I'd been reading about. I was at least somewhat knowledgeable about it, so I just went with it. And I'm not saying that no political discussions will ever happen here, because that I just know by some of the people I've already talked about getting to sit down with me that there's no way we're going to get through too much time without some kind of political discourse, and some of us may even just kind of go balls deep with it. So maybe maybe I'll do some kind of spoiler alert and save some people some time if you don't want too big a ear beating on those types of topics, I can understand that. So I guess this episode is brought to you by Random Thoughts. So a funny thing I see a lot of is these people that say they want to, I treat my man like a king. Like, you ever notice how the people who say that, for the most part, are, well, I want to say, like, white trailer trash, but not really, because I've seen it in several different colors of people. This is just kind of, I feel like this is a thing that mostly maybe hip-hop stars and then the bottom of the barrel type people, like, not even the bottom of the barrel type people, but the people who haven't figured out their issues yet at all. They haven't realized that they have them. Those kind of people. They're the people who are constantly in and out of new relationships. And they never last long because they don't realize they're crazy, and that there is, hallelujah, there is a path to salvation for crazy. I went to the mountaintop. I gazed upon the distant lands. I tell you, there was no elephant graveyard in sight. There was just therapy. There was personal responsibility, and there was hard work. There was hard work on the other side of that mountain, but I tell you what, there is absolution for yo crazy, darling. You can fix you. But they're the kind of people, they're always saying, like, I don't understand why I can't keep a man. I treat my man like a king. And then I just picture, I picture a dude between 5'9" and 6'1". No specific skin color. He's wearing blue jeans, Maybe Jordans. Maybe something a little cheaper than Jordans. No, probably Jordans. Because he spent the last of her last child support check to buy them. You know, he had to get his J's. And he's got a, wife beater blue jeans, Jordans. He might have ironic nerd glasses. A lot of people are doing that these days. And I think they think it makes them look smarter. And, well, she treats him like a king, so he goddamn well better have a Burger King crown on. Look, don't treat anybody like a king. Nobody's a fucking king. You're not a queen, bitch. You're not. Nobody's a queen. You're just a fucking person. I'm a person. You's a person. Just be persons. But here's the thing. You can't keep a man because you're insecure and because you are very clingy. That's why you can't keep a man. Just like, if we're going to be honest about me, just so I'm not just outwardly being a dick to people, I am fat and I'm kind of a dick. I have my excuses for that, but it is what it is. And, the results are what they are. And so I do take steps to try to work on me. And hopefully, eventually, I'm going to get to a point where I can beat some of these darker things in my life, and I'll go on and I'll move past it, and I'll get what I need in that process, and I understand it. So, look, we all got to do work on ourselves. We're never going to get better staying the same as we are. So, I guess that's enough of an ear beating for that, but I just thought, overall it's a positive message, and it's just a thing that always kind of cracks me up when I see it. You just know there's some psychosis attached to that, and, real recognize real, crazy recognize crazy. I can smell it on you, but don't worry, because I'm a little nutty myself. It's all good. It's all good. I'm trying to look at some of the... Have you ever written down things that seemed like good ideas at the time, and then you go back and you reread them, and you're like, what was I thinking? I think the hearing, kids start to come into, like, talking about sex and things like that, I think that's pretty relatable, but then I got some of these other thoughts that are just like, what was I thinking? I just wrote down the words annoying-ass advertisements. I guess I just knew that was something we can all relate to. Like, I know that's why we all love DVR now. Like, fuck commercials, dude. What is going on with that shit? But you ever notice now, and I think in some places it may be illegal, but you're watching something and you find like that perfect volume. Like maybe someone's asleep upstairs, and so you're like trying to find that perfect volume where you can hear what's going on, but it's not crazy loud. And you're in the middle of watching a show and the dialogue's right about here. And the characters are talking to each other. And you see the little logo pop up in the corner. And you know it's about time for a fucking Tide commercial to come on where they're screaming at the top of their goddamn lungs. You want to know why people hate corporations? There you have it. Man, that is the most obnoxious shit ever. I really hope I'm getting far enough away from my microphone when I do that. I'm trying to be a little more high energy without getting a little too much into that radio DJ voice. Thank you for being the 9th caller to call in to W Suck My Nuts. What is the answer to the latest question? No, you're wrong. Go to hell. Get the fuck off our phones. We've got other people to talk to. Weather, news, celebrity gossip, weather, news. Here's a song you've heard a million times today. Back to the weather, back to the news, and we're throwing it out to the news. Radio is hot garbage these days, man. I wonder if I can go back and bring those levels down at certain places. It looks like they're spiking pretty high. I think I'm gonna probably put a disclaimer to headphone users at the beginning of this, so you don't get hit too hard by those yelling spikes. So I've definitely had some conversations with some friends. I've gotten some constructive criticism on the show. Something I'm going to work on is trying to find a little bit of structure. I don't think it's going to be where I have the same segments all the time, because I really want to sit down and have real conversations with people. I keep saying that, and it's definitely going to happen. I've talked to like 6 or 7 people that are going to sit down and talk with me. And it's just a matter of, we've all got our lives. You know, we all have full-time jobs, but then on top of that, we all have our lives outside of those jobs, and sometimes it's hard to line us all up. So we'll get it going, and I think it'll be fun, and I hope that I can get some people to take the little journey with me, and maybe we'll turn this into something kind of cool and interactive at some point. Just, it'd be cool to build a little, it'd be cool to carve out a little spot in the world for my friends and I, and our creative passions, and, you know, the things we love to do. It would be nice to engineer a little place where we can really kind of get into the things that I know we're capable of, because honestly, man, you don't want to be a slave to the grind forever, you know, and we all have dreams, and we all, you know, some of us get to chase them and others don't. I've been fortunate so far. I don't have any, to the best of my knowledge, I don't have any children floating around out there. I do have the unique capability to chase whimsies. I've had to think about what the plan is, as far as, you know, if I want to pursue comedy as an interest, how the fuck what does that mean? Like, oh man, that's a anxiety inducing question. What does it mean to chase your dream? Because it's something where you got to think about, like, this is a pretty small industry, right? Like, and it's a super talented industry. It's an industry with people who are far and away funnier, better writers, people that are already established, people that are household names. And I'm thinking, man, I'd like to do that. And you got to think, man, that's a hard thing to do. That's a big thing to do. Not to mention, there's a lot of people in your periphery when you want to do something like that are just, they're poo-pooers, man. They're party poo-pooers. They just poo-poo on your dreams. You know, I think some people get to a point in life where they feel like chasing your dreams is maybe a silly thing to do or unrealistic. It never really pans out. And I'm like, well, look, man, yeah, because it doesn't for everybody, and it may not for me, and that's definitely a possibility. Because I know I'm undeveloped. I'm just starting to try to figure out, like, you know, I mean, how jokes work, you know, the idea of using timing and surprise in order to elicit an involuntary response that is hopefully contagious. You know, when you break it down to like a formula, it's actually a really confusing thing. And then you've got to try to objectively write material that will probably fall on its ass. Most things don't work. Like, at least not in their original form, so it's a super intimidating undertaking. And I think it's probably going to take me a while to convince myself to actually get on the stage and do it. So then I have to wonder, like, in the back of my head, I've got this idea, like I do have this sort of parachute I can pull, and what I jokingly say is I pray till May, and in May I will reach a certain period of time that I've been with my employer. I am able to leave. If I leave on good terms, I can cash out, over 70% of my 401k. Basically, I'll have a good little chunk of money that will allow me to go out and sort of start something. And that's it. I can pay off my car, I can go somewhere, and I can start something, and that's what I have. But, on the other hand, I don't have nearly enough material to try to go start working on it at an open mic. I don't. I have, 1,000 premises written down, and as I've just experienced, or just realized in the last day or so, most of those are neither original nor clever, and they're not really going to move to the next phase. So, and again, I'm just sort of looking at, learning the structure. It's going to take me a little while, but I live in central Indiana. In the city I live in, I have one dedicated comedy club, but I live less than an hour. Well, with the fucking traffic, it's more than an hour, but I live about 50 miles from Indianapolis, and there are several open mics there every week. And believe me when I say I there's no pretense, I have no delusions of grandeur. I realize that I'm going to be a rookie and I'm going to suck, and this is going to be scary and it's going to be hard, and I'm going to have to convince myself to go and do this again and again and again and again. But I do have a place where I have enough places nearby that I can at least get familiar with the process of going on stage, the feeling of bombing, start to learn some of the basics about, see if I can learn how to capture the crowd, turn them around, things like that. There's all kinds of things that go into the psychology of comedy, also the psychology of pro wrestling, also the psychology of rock and roll, basically just the psychology of show business, which is really just human psychology. It's just applying it in different ways. So I have to figure all of that shit out, and so I'm thinking maybe I might try to be a model employee for my employer that will always remain unnamed on my podcast. And maybe I'll find a way to maybe I'll find a way to get this thing going, but there's so many choices right now for what I could do in the next year or so that it's a little bit overwhelming, and I have to figure that out. But the good thing is I own all of this equipment, I own my brain, and as long as my heart doesn't quit on me, which I don't know if it's a real risk right now, but it could be not too far down the road. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. As long as the heart works and my brain still works, I've got everything I need to be creative, and so hopefully I can find a way to go where I feel most jives with my soul, because I'm tired of grinding myself down for other people, and I'm tired of being unhappy. There's this thing some of us do where we go too far to try to make other people happy and we ignore ourselves. I am guilty of that. I am also guilty of not stepping away and taking responsibility for that and becoming sort of a dickhead about it. So I'm trying to do the positive thing these days. I hope you are too, and I thank you very much for listening. We're closing in on a half hour. I am Matt Jablonski. This is the Matt Signal. Hopefully we've got the grandma episodes coming soon, and we'll start getting into it with my friends in the meantime and in between time. I hope you have a fabulous fucking life. Thanks.